So welcome to the Mobility Conference of
Thank you.
2016. You're here to talk about the impact of the collaborative economy from
Yes.
your perspective as a policy advisor at Uber. For you, so what does the phrase sharing economy mean?
Well, it's basically the ability to share resources. I mean, today I think I spoke a little bit about how 96% of all cars are just not being used at any given time. That means only 4% of them are on the roads. And so I think there has to be more thinking around how we can utilize those shared resources. And those are shared resources that are very, very expensive. So we can find ways to share the cost by being able to share rides through products like Uber Pool that allow people who are going in the same direction to match up, share the cost of the ride and share the ride itself. That can help, reduce congestion, improve the environment overall, and really start to make an impact on the way we see, even the way we use cities. Less of it can be used for parking. The actual resources can be used more effectively and efficiently, and I think it'll really start to change the future of mobility.
So is the peer-to-peer business model here to stay? Or is there a risk that increased regulation will encroach into the space occupied by companies such as Uber?
Well, we're really optimistic about the future of ride sharing. We think that thousands and thousands of people have experienced the benefits of services like Uber Pop, and so we're optimistic that we will be able to work with governments and organizations to craft regulations that make sense for this environment. So what we believe, though, is that consumers need to be able to have confidence and certainty in the model, that regulations need to allow for a safe and reliable ride at all times, and that it needs to be innovation friendly and technology neutral. So there's a lot of elements that have to go into it, and we're looking forward to working with policymakers as well as organizations to make sure that happens.
So we're here at the FIA Mobility Conference, and we've got a lot of traditional motoring organisations here. So what do you think the lessons they can learn from the arrival of platforms such as Uber and Airbnb? And is that aggregation of services into a single user-friendly space in the future?
I think your president actually was talking today in the conclusion about how it's not necessarily the future of car ownership and single rides, but the future of mobility. And I think that's the right way to think about it. And I think he was encouraging people in the clubs to think more and more about the future and how this is our shared future and how mobility as a service is really going to be something that's on the rise. And so I'm excited to see that. I think that the FIA is going to be an important part of that future.
So is there another lesson for more established businesses that unless you embrace new technology and innovate, you'll be left behind?
No, I think that it's important for new technologies to also complement the existing services that are happening. If you look at the way our service works, for example, a lot of people take us as the first and last mile to and from public transit. That means public transit is not only just as important as before, it's even more important than before because more and more people have access to it. So it's to think about how these models, the new models, need new regulations that can allow for innovation to happen and also complement old models as well.
And there's a statistic out there that suggests Uber is entering a new market every 6 days.
Oh my goodness.
That's a staggering level of growth. How is that manageable in terms of reliability, availability, and most importantly, I think, safety?
Well, a lot of our service relies on customer demand, right? If people have to want the rides in order for us to operate. And so I think, today we're in over 400 cities in 70 different countries, and we're constantly expanding. I think for us, it's about making sure that we are ensuring safety before, during, and after every ride. And that means everything from improving transparency and accountability of what happens when you get into a car. So you're able to see the make and model of the car, the license plate number, and the person's name for the first time. This is the first time every single ride is GPS tracked literally from beginning to end, and you're actually able to send a signal to your loved ones about where you're going on a map and they can follow. And then lastly, the ability to be able to provide real-time feedback and also provide ratings and be able to assess that data to see who should and shouldn't be on the road. I think a lot of that technology on top of the standard checks that we've been running adds a lot of safety to the service. And I think the ability of technology to scale is what allows us to provide that safe and reliable service.
Now, disruptive businesses, as it might be termed, have a history of kind of disrupting themselves, effectively cannibalized by existing players upping their game or rivals entering into the same space as you. Where are we in that cycle, and how does Uber plan to sort of stay ahead of today?
Well, we're obviously in strong favor of competition. I mean, I think multiple regulatory authorities around the world have actually lauded Uber in terms of the ability to change up the transportation industry. So, it's important. And when you're a technology company, you have to keep innovating. And that's why we want to be first movers on things like Uber Pool, Uber Commute, new services like that. We're constantly thinking more and more about logistics. You'll see in the US, we have services like Uber Eats that allows restaurants to serve customers all year round and accommodate some issues with seasonality that they might have. You have things like Uber Rush that are basically delivering goods and services. So we're really thinking about the future of logistics and what that looks like and how we can serve people around a city much more efficiently.
Uber is currently a platform that links passengers to drivers, but which actually has no fleet. What happens when those drivers no longer exist and we enter into a world of autonomous driving?
Well, I think we're a ways away from that still, but I think it's always exciting to see new innovation on the rise. I think Lyft, Uber, Google, Volvo, and Ford have recently formed a coalition called that's focused on safer streets. And so the thought is, how can we actually leverage technology in a way that really benefits people? And that's really coming from the safety front. So I'm excited to see what happens with that.
Thank you.
Thanks.